Got a little time here, so let's see if we can get through any more of this crap ass board meeting.
The sphere in those situations.
Oh yeah, here they're having the canonization of Saint Bernie. He's being canonized for the Church of Trimet. Look at that, they have a whole resolution and a whole goddamn 9 yards of baloney.
I don't think you get enough credit and enough recognition for the fact that that you are the ones who have to make those tough decisions and be present for the community to acknowledge the feedback that the community is ultimately going to provide in those situations. So thank you for your work and your energy and your time and dedication and supporting this wonderful agency and the incredible region that we live in. So appreciate everything.
Thank you, Bernie. So you're right, it is time for a break. I have one item I'm going to get to before the consent agenda, but let's take a break first. Everybody's been very patient. So how about we take a 10-minute break and reconvene about 11:31? Is that okay with everybody? Yep, I'm seeing that. So we are adjourned for 10 minutes. And before we get into the consent agenda, I wanted to ask the board to consider a motion that I'd like to make. I guess I forgot it because I wanted to do it right after we said goodbye to Travis, but I guess I was too bummed. So what I want to do is make a motion to appoint Director Lori Irish Bauman as Vice President of the Trimet Board on an interim basis. As I think we all know, after Travis,
why not Keith Edwards? Why not Kathy Wood? Why this bitch?
Having served on the board
She's since her
appointment by the governor.
Why not Ozzy?
She regularly demonstrates
they want a woman,
deep knowledge of Trimet and a calm, steady hand, qualities that are exactly what Trimet needs during these times of extreme change. And what I
heard Lori Bauman talking about, when they were talking about the fair enforcement, she made the point that, well, if we don't have the fair inspectors, people will try to get away with it. In other words, she was, neoliberalizing. Well, people will get away with it. Those kind of people are the last people you want in charge of anything. But of course, it's America, and the most corrupt people end up at the top of the food chain in a country that's all backwards. Everything is backwards, where people like Donald Trump end up in charge and Julian Assange ends up in jail. I mean, it's this is where we live, man, in a fucking reality that's completely upside down.
Vision is the interim appointment would be until we have a new board member replacement for Travis, which looks like it will probably be early next year sometime, at which time we, the board, would then vote on a resolution for a full slate of board officer and committee appointments. So in the meantime, Director Bauman would fill all the duties that Travis has been performing as Vice President, including serving on the Finance and Audit Committee. So that's my motion. With that motion, that I made that I'm going to make a move to make that motion a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry. What was that?
I don't mean to correct you, but I don't think you can make that motion. But I will certainly make that motion.
Well, then why don't you make that motion?
And I'll make the
let
second.
Somebody else second it.
Travis will second.
All right. I'll ask our general counsel who advised me whether I could make that motion, but thank you. Is there any discussion of this motion? I think I've talked with everybody. I'm hearing none, then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to establish or appoint Director Lori Irish Bauman as Vice President on an interim basis, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nope.
Any abstentions? I will declare that unanimous. With that, I'm going to move on to the next thing on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. And as you all know, the items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and can be approved by the board in a one blanket motion. And any board member can pull an item off the consent agenda for discussion or questions by requesting such prior to consideration of this portion of the agenda. And I will point out for anybody listening, there's two items: the approval of the board minutes for our meeting of October 28, 2020, And then there's a resolution, reading, which specifies reading of ordinances, because we have two of them on our agenda today, to be done by title only. So is there anything on the consent agenda today board member would like to have removed or has questions about?
I don't have any questions. There's a correction of Lori Irish Bauman's, the first mention of her name is misspelled, and that needs to be corrected. Other than that, that's the only thing that I have.
Thank you for that catch. We'll make sure that is corrected. Anything else?
I move to approve the consent agenda, which contains the approval of the board meeting minutes for October 28, 2020, and the reading of ordinances by title only.
With the noted changes recommended by
With the
Director.
noted changes by Director Edwards.
All right.
Thank you.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second, Travis.
All right. All those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the minor change, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, of
Any
course not.
abstentions? The motion is approved unanimously. All right, let's move on to our resolutions. We have three of them. The first resolution is Resolution 20-12-45,
Let's
which is
play along at
approving
home.
the FY 22-23 Transportation Improvement Plan. And I know that at least one of you has read all 110 pages of the
See if we
attachment,
can find it here.
and so did I. So, Mr. General Manager, you want to provide the report on this?
Where is it? Where is it?
Yes, a few comments, then I'm going to turn it over to Tom Mills and Bernie as needed.
Where
So just
is
a
it?
reminder for the board members, every 2 years, we're required by law to update the plan. STIF, or the Statewide Transportation Improvement Funds. This is all part of the Keep Oregon Moving Act.
Where is the stupid shit?
The plan was presented at a virtual town hall set of meetings held in October, as well as on our website, where visitors could, provide feedback and comments accordingly. This,
Where is it?
what you have before you, requires board approval to be able to then submit to the state. This STIF plan you have before you allocates ongoing funding for a variety of programs. Examples of it would include things like the low-income fare program, service expansion, free and reduced fares for high schools who live in low-income households,
Where the hell is that?
first
fucking
service
idea?
for elderly and disabled riders, and expansion of our non-diesel bus program as examples. It provides
here it
funding for improvements to improving the customer experience on the system as well. And things like real-time arrival information are just examples of those products recently. It also helps fund our enhanced transit concepts that we can use with support of our jurisdictional partners, getting buses out of traffic, the rose lanes, things of that
What's
nature
he talking
to
about
speed
here?
them
Where's-
up and to be on time. One significant change I think worth noting here, because of COVID-19, the state legislature,
here it is.
they updated the law to allow for the funds specifically. We spoke about this a bit in the general manager report earlier, to be used for service preservation, not just expansion. It is intended to be temporary after we presented directly to the legislature, and they were very understanding and accommodating. So that is a significant change for this year. So we've indefinitely paused our expansion plans, and we remain about 90% of service, and that 80 to 90%, we're going to see how people vote with their feet here and relative to our affordability. The goal is to keep that low.
Yeah, I know that's bullshit. Okay, they're doing the exact wrong thing with that. You're not going to provide the service, and people, it's the circling the drain syndrome. We're going to see how people vote with. They're not going to take your fucking buses if you don't have enough of them. Okay, so it's just self-fulfilling prophecy. Nobody wants to take it anyway. You should be increasing your bus every 5. You should be advertising a bus every 5 minutes to make sure social distancing is upheld. No waiting a lot, but they're doing the opposite. They're doing the opposite of what they should be doing, which is exactly what you expect from America. Everything to hurt you and keep the elites going. So that's how it works.
Level of service, but we may have to default back to 80, but we will see how time unfolds.
Yeah, of course you're going to default back to
prior to
80.
the
Of course,
pandemic.
they'll go back to 60. They'll do anything. They'll cut all your service as long as the capital projects keeps going at 100%. They don't care about any of this. You're nothing. You're dirt. You're like dirt under their shoes, and they just have to kick you out of their way.
So Mr. Board President, members of the board, your approval is recommended.
And of course it's approved. When is it not approved? Well, come on.
And Doug, would you like me to start the presentation?
Yeah, if you could just kick into the,
Sure.
Early high overview.
Oh, COVID.
Yeah, just to kind of remind the board,
There's a ton
we every 2 years we have to update this plan. Actually, let me share my screen here real quickly. There we go. Sharing abilities. So I'll try to be quick through this. I know we're running a little behind. So just to remind ourselves, the Keep Oregon Moving.
This was a tax grab. They took your money. They stole it. The legislators said, okay, we're going to steal our taxpayers' money. And we vote, yes, we're going to take your money. And that's what they did. It was what, 3, 4 billion, 5 billion? I don't remember. And, it's just pork for them. And that's how it works. It goes all to the elites, nothing to you, as usual.
2017 Keep Oregon Moving law
Keep Oregon.
included.
They always have the nice little names, like the CARES Act. Like the CARES Act all went to the fucking billionaires, but they called it the CARES Act to make you think that it's like, oh, we care about you. And then the HEROES Act, which didn't give you shit. Just like this, Keep Oregon Moving Act. It should be called Pork Barrel for Oregon Act is what this is. But they have the nice little name, Keep Oregon Moving. They have the nice little names attached to their fucking criminality.
That funded the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, the STIF program.
Yes.
And
you're getting
stiffed. A 0.1% tax on all payroll statewide.
90%
of it that's generated in this region comes back to us.
To you.
And the other 10% is broken up for competitive grant programs. And
90% comes back to the technocrats of Trimet. So they can have more managers, more executives, more useless crap, more capital projects, more thefts.
Some administrative work that ODOT receives. We must provide a plan every year. We are the qualified entity for the entire 3-county region, which means our plan includes areas outside the Trimet district that the counties themselves put together. And as you can see in this list, I won't go through all of it, but the program has to touch on at least some, if not all of these items. And we do touch on all of these topics.
No.
Going back to 2020, to February of 2020, this committee, this board, approved our HB 2017 Transit Advisory Committee roster. That committee is probably the most diverse committee I've ever participated on. We are 50%, 7% women, 43% BIPOC. And that group has met monthly since February.
BIPOC.
And you can see the types of groups that it represents.
Their diversity baloney. I wish if it actually translated into something that helped people, I could get behind the program, but it doesn't help anybody. It's just some signaling agenda
there. And if we were to actually look at the advocates themselves, you'll see quite a number of I can be in presentation
okay
mode.
Look, what's the Business Alliance doing in there? What's the Chamber of Commerce doing in there? I don't know. The Opal definitely needs to be there. Okay, at least I put Opal on there, so that's something positive. I don't know who this is. I don't know who they are.
Organizations that work in the transportation sphere that you've become familiar with over the years. So we're getting really great from everyone. 2 years ago, this board approved the plan. We call it the PTIP, the Public Transportation Improvement Plan. It's what's accessible to the public, very readable. What we submit to ODOT really is more of an application. And it's a 5-year plan addressing all of the items that you see listed here. And then additionally, as I mentioned, this plan also includes improvements outside the Trimet district, including the rural parts of the county, as well as in Clackamas County, they have 4 small transit providers, and that we've asked all of them to develop their own plans, which we have then combined with the STIF plan. I do want to note that Trimet acts as the compliance monitor on behalf of ODOT for these other entities. So we are in charge, Nancy Young and her team.
Bureaucracy upon bureaucracy. So there's ODOT, there's Trimet, and then there's just multi-level bureaucracy. Each level skims off its piece of it.
We're in charge of ensuring that they are spending the funds appropriately. This isn't always it's somewhat of a thankless job on our part, but it is what we have to do as as our role as the qualified entity for the region.
Qualified entity, yeah.
So the new STIF plan, again, has funding going to all of those programs.
Yeah, all of this shit, service expansion, forget it. Low-income fare should be no-income fare. Battery electric buses, forget it for now. Regional coordination, check. Student passes should be student-free passes. Senior and disabled should be free. And I don't know, all this capital stuff is just baloney. And, that stuff should all be canceled.
The last STIF plan, so it's mostly an update, but there are some new things to the plan. First off, I want to mention every year when we submit the STIF plan, or excuse me, every 2 years, we must update our equity map. So this is an updated equity map. It's still mostly telling the same story, however. The equity areas are predominantly in East Portland, East Multnomah County, in the Clackamas Town Center area, Oregon City, McLaughlin, the Highway 217 areas, as well as Aloha, Hillsborough, and Forest Grove and Neelix, and along with the Columbia Corridor. Pretty much so, and downtown Portland. Pretty much so the same areas that we saw last time around, with here and there showing some some census block groups that were maybe aren't an equity area now, but other ones that, crossed the threshold and were. Basically, that happens because there's a number of census block groups that are really just either just over the threshold or just under the threshold. And so I think every couple of years they kind of go back and forth. Additionally, new to the STIF plan is some funding that goes towards the Special Transportation Funds program. You're probably familiar with STF. The Trimet is the administrator of those funds, similar to the STIF program. And those funds are predominantly funded with money coming from cigarette tax, as well as some gasoline tax money.
Tax everything.
Every biennium, the
Keep
legislature
taxing the people
also
until they have nothing left.
That STF program with general fund. And that's what's occurred over the last so many years, although the amount has never been consistent. It's always kind of gone up and down. In the 2019 legislative session, however, the legislature decided not to allocate any general funds to the STF program, and instead they requested ODOT to propose a combined STF-STIF program to be approved at the 2020 legislative session. However, if we all recall, that legislative session ended early due to a walkout, and they never actually got to combine those programs. So it did come up in the June emergency legislative session, but because of the lateness of that, the program, the combination of the two programs is now scheduled for the FY24-25 biennium. However, that still leaves a problem because the legislature never allocated money to the general fund money to the STF program. So our committee has decided to step in and fill the gap We call it STF supplemental. And so they're allocating funds to fill that gap until the FY 24-25 biennium when the programs will be combined. Additionally, new to the program, as Doug had mentioned, were service preservation funds. Normally, the legislation only allows us to expand service, but because of COVID-19, the legislature passed HB 1601, which allows us to put money towards service preservation. And at this time, the committee set aside $42 million over FY 22-23 biennium. And that is the money that Nancy Young had mentioned in her presentation about possible service preservation in FY 23. So what does that mean for our programs? I won't go through all the numbers, but what I'll show you on the right side is what is increasing and what is decreasing. So for the low-income fare, we actually decided to still increase that program because there is a recession.
No shit, you should increase it, Sherlock.
There may be more demand for low-income fare. And prior to COVID, that program was really operating on all cylinders. So we
it should be no income fare, not low income. Should be like, here's your bus pass. Doesn't cost you anything. Nope.
Expect there will still be strong demand for that. Service expansion. This expansion is very slight. It's not a lot.
Service expansion is up? You got to be kidding me. From 10 million, they're going up $3 million on service expansion. Unbelievable. But at the same time, he just got through saying they vote with their feet. If they don't take the bus, we're going to cut back to 80%. So that's bullshit. That's capital projects. So of course they're going to get that money.
Of money. It's only to maybe expand a couple lines, trying to live up to or meet our commitments to the Rose Lane improvements, just a couple of them. Most of that money is actually to maintain the service expansions that we did in the last biennium. So it's really kind of service maintenance mostly. The next four programs are all the same. We're keeping them at the same level. But the capital program, we have decreased on that. The committee decided, if there's going to be a shortage of funds, let's take that out of the capital program. So really that savings that we're getting that we can put towards service preservation is coming out of both the capital program as well as slowing down our service expansion. Additionally, I would say that we have a lot of money that we have received that we haven't spent yet in the capital program because it takes time to stand up these programs. And so we're slowing those down and we're using that money for that service preservation as well. And you'll see, as I mentioned, STF Supplemental and Service Preservation are new programs. So we took this plan to the public. As Doug mentioned, we had the virtual town halls. During those the town halls, we had an English town hall and a Spanish town hall. During them, we had 99 people viewing the English town hall and 31 viewing the Spanish town hall. But additionally, we put those town halls up online, and you can see we had 6,900 people view the English and 1,800 people view the Spanish, far more than we've ever had, had we done a live town hall. So that was quite impressive. And then, of course, reactions, comments, shares, we're able to track that and see how many people reacted positively towards the town halls. Lastly, I want to mention we did have an online survey, and you can see the number of respondents and comments we received.
Where?
And when you look at what the responses were, generally very positive responses, especially with the allocation of funds towards seniors and people with disabilities that had the highest. The same with the service preservation money. So people really want us to try to maintain the service as best we can, and that also received the highest. I averaged all the comments about capital, all the different capital programs, and the STF supplemental is coming from the comments regarding the senior disabled.
Hold on. I gotta.
So,
all right, I gotta cut,
as
hold on.
Doug had mentioned,
I gotta cut
we're
this. I
hoping
got
today
my
that you
step
could
brother here.
pass a resolution.
So we're gonna have to cut the video. Sorry.